Okay, I'm doing something a little bit different for this video. Now, normally, when my streams get corrupted or it cannot spit out a VOD for me or I lose the VOD, I normally just move on. But for this Formula Super Series race, Season 2 at Chicago, a track that I picked, by the way, I didn't want to lose this one. This one is probably not going to have too many opportunities to have a race like this with such a huge grid of really awesome super formula drivers at such a difficult street track. So what I'm going to do is I fortunately have the recording of this race, and I'm just going to play through it and commentate over it kind of after the fact. Not as good as seeing things live, but at least there is kind of something to upload. And I was pleasantly surprised to find that everything from my overlays still kind of worked retrospectively with this. So let's kind of get going.
JJ, do thing. Hey everybody, thanks for coming out for the FSS Chicago round. This is our first of 2 street tracks and definitely our more difficult one. Space is at a premium here, so please just give each other space. Be careful about going side by side. We are aware that the slowdowns on the access roads are not appropriate, so admins will be watching that kind of post-race. So please don't abuse those roads to gain a position or gain time. If you have to use it for if you feel like you're not making the corner or if you are trying to avoid a track blocker, that's fine. Just make a sincere effort not to try to just flow through the corners and just cut. General rule of thumb is if you're off throttle on exit and feedback carefully, you will not be given a penalty or look poorly upon by the admins. So obviously no push to pass through the access roads in any circumstance. We do have full course cautions turned on for this round as well. There is a possibility of that for the sprint. So just kind of keep your wits about you and be prepared to carefully slow down if there is a big wreck. And watch out for kind of track blockers. Lastly, the race control was done a little bit late, and for that we apologize. We had to actually bring in Jeff Mathis as a stand-in steward for this one as a third party, as some of the incidents involved some of the admin teammates that we couldn't roll on. Please check the sheet to see if you have a penalty. The tab that is to the far right, that is how many pits to serve. That one has been appropriately updated and double checked by Zach. So if you have one that you need to take a pit start for the sprint, then you will be listed there. And those penalties are only for the sprint, so please miss the sprint start if you have them. There's a question about whether pit lane starts can do qualifying. You are allowed to qualify if you have a pit lane start. Lastly, a quick update in practice sessions. We've gotten a couple complaints about people driving carelessly during practice. Just please note that starting now, we will actually start enforcing conduct rules during practice. So we understand that practice is more about you finding your limit. Wrecks will happen. Maybe some ill-advised dive bombs will happen. We're not going to judge it harshly as harshly as we do during the race, but we will not stand for intentional wrecking anymore. Some people are trying to practice a full stint. For some people, this is their only practice, and it's frustrating to learn a track or to get through a practice stint if you're getting purposely ran into. So please stop doing that in practice sessions from now on.
Cool story, bud. Show me the titties, JJ.
And that's gonna be Drew getting chat banned.
Penalty point for voice chat conduct.
Yeah. So this was
Already
practice.
ahead of you.
This was practice, obviously.
Meow.
That was me and
No meowing on guard.
actually my teammates being funny.
Also, one other thing to add: pit entry and pit exit are quite tight here. Please make sure to call your pit ins and pit outs. With pit out, it is the responsibility of the pitting car to rejoin safely, especially blending in right at the exit of turn 1. So just be careful. I know we can lose time there, but it's better to be safe on track than to be wrecked into the wall.
One final note, if you do take the access road and gain a position or some kind of time advantage, you have 3 corners to kind of give that back. Just got a question on that.
I don't know how JJ could ramble for 5 minutes and not say anything about pit in, pit out. Anyway, have fun.
Okay, so this is qualifying. I immediately jump into, of course, I'm just looking forward to this basically all season. And my really quick jump into qualifying should pretty well illustrates kind of my enthusiasm for this car and this track. Kind of going through just kind of the warm-up. I'm doing my best not to wreck. Just because wrecking will probably just waste time, and I want to use all 3 laps because your 3rd lap is going to be your best conditions on these tires with the qualifying set of this league. That's not really any of the engineering team's fault because the tires for this car has a very unique heat-up cycle, and they're honestly really durable, so they're kind of hard as rocks. So this is kind of the best we could do, or at least I think this is the best can be reasonably expected of anybody to kind of put together a qualifying set that just kind of heats up as fast as possible. So this is my first lap. I am pushing, as you can see right there, with aggressively getting back on throttle. Oh, well. And there you go. More evidence that I'm pushing. So I didn't reset, just largely because A, I don't want to waste time, and B, the first lap is never really going to be that great anyways. This is going to be a super awful lap, but I figured in the back of my head, it is better that I have at least 1 lap on the board, and there's going to be quite a bit of folks that probably don't have even a lap registered for qualifying. So it's still important that I push because it helps with tire warm-up and just treating the tire for the upcoming laps. I did a confidence shift down there, which I kind of wasn't that happy about, if I'm honest, but I thought that this was a reasonably decent push lap. Just sent it in there. I took these corners pretty well. Now that was my real banker lap. Tires feel good at this point. Still a confidence shift down there, but that's okay. And that's a 0x right there. And at this point, no matter what I've done, this lap wouldn't have counted. Which is a shame, because I was actually up just within that first sector. And then at this point, I knew it, of course. I was just kind of running just to continually warm up. Like, I had a better turn in there. I was more aggressive here than on the qualifying lap that I actually registered as. And then just a little bit too close on that right side, which, again, I'm actually glad that I did this lap, because that's going to actually turn out to be fortuitous a little bit later. Like the fact that I kind of know exactly how close I could turn in there and still kind of hit the wall. Of course, this was a terrible lap because of those contacts. It wasn't going to register anyways after the second contact. So I'm going to skip ahead to the start of the race, or at the start of the sprint race. Okay, so this is the sprint race of Chicago, and my 09 flat from qualifying was good enough for P9 out of this whole grid. And really I'm starting P8 because, as you can see up there, there is somebody missing on the grid, and they're taking a pit penalty that qualified ahead of me. I get a good jump, but I get a little bit greedy and I spin my rear tires and almost lose it in front of my teammate Chris. He does make contact with me. I feel bad about that, but we're both able to continue. Chris is maybe missing a little bit of downforce, but we're both still competitive. I see kind of the fast guys duking it out. That's Michael Costello and Mitch Welker. Michael kind of makes a dive.
That's dumb.
Mitch is upset at that. They kind of went too wide on lap 1 into turns 4. Chris thinks about passing Mario, who's had an awful season, honestly. That is, by awful, I meant like really unlucky. He's been really quick, and he's generally a much better driver than me. But he hasn't been lasting these races, and often through no fault of his own. And, well, there is...
Track block.
And that's continuing for Chicago, rather unfortunately.
Track block.
It's a really gnarly wreck that Mario had with Mitch. Mitch just spun from damage from that fountain section. So at this point, I'm feeling like my rear tire still doesn't have quite a lot of grip. I think I'm still kind of reasonably keeping pace. That's Zach Buchanan, who is passing me. He is Mitch's teammate. Mitch is in the pink version of that car. But yeah, I'm missing some like rear traction in general. And especially after that start line wheel spin, my rears just feel like it doesn't have the kind of purchase that I kind of expect on the race set. But I'm still kind of keeping up. I go a little bit on push to pass now to stay ahead of the cars behind. And then at this point, I'm trying to settle in a rhythm. I feel like the car is kind of slowly coming to me. I know I'm faster than some of the faster guys than me at the second half of the lap. Chris is just still struggling with a little bit of lack of downforce ahead, holding up Zach. So that spin was rather unfortunate. That's Dan coming on my outside. I get a little distracted by Chris missing the corner, and I'm just kind of worried about my my rear wing contact. So I do take it a little bit easy, and with tires kind of overheated, I let him go. And I'm currently out of the invert, and I'm like super upset. I know I have the pace to at least be within the bottom half of the top 10, at least. And that mistake, I'm kind of ruined that mistake right now. So I'm trying to think about how I'm going to make passes. I know I can be faster than the two cars that passed me at least. There's Brett Hahn kind of wrecking, which would help, but it's not good enough for the invert. So I'm trying to push right now, even though at this point, I should be taking it easy. Byron Daly wrecks. I don't actually know what happens there, but I think it's just a single car mistake. Track is really bumpy. So my teammate Dan understeers like Chris into the wall. He does actually make pretty hard contact. I think his wheels are straight, but his front wing is pretty wrinkled badly. And then, as you can see here, the end plate on his left side is pretty badly damaged. So he's missing downforce, but his suspension's still fine, so it's kind of still keeping pace. I lift early, just being careful about Dan's lack of downforce. Dan turns in a little bit too early and has to correct it, which makes him get a terrible exit. I go on his inside, pretty straightforward pass. And then at this point, I'm after the car in front. I'm now feeling more confidence, especially after pulling a pass on Dan. So I'm definitely pushing. Getting closer to the walls, I see the car in front lock up. That's good for me. More wrecks, that's helping me. I'm still pretty hungry though. So I'm still pushing. I know I can get by the car in front on pace, although it's really difficult to follow on this track. I really do kind of need a bit of a mistake to kind of pull him back towards me. I have push to pass that I kind of use. I'm a little bit shy on push to pass because I'm worried about rear traction like so. I'm starting to hit my marks better, controlling the wheel spin better. Still on push to pass, I just want to like close up and put more pressure on the car in front. It's so hard to follow at this track with a high downforce car like this. You just get so much dirty air. Definitely pushing. I do a confidence shift down in that corner because of the dirty air, which I end up getting quite a bit affected by anyways. I'm just doing my best to get as close to the car in front as possible. It was just really difficult with all the air kind of being thrown back on me. just the nature of a track like this too. And then, yep, and then that's me kind of pushing too hard. Suspension is completely destroyed here. I do my best to continue, but I get a meatball flag around here, and then just lifting off, the suspension is completely destroyed. Definitely mad at myself, and I kind of worried about the sprint race at this point. So going to the pits, and then this is going to be too much damage. We're done. I could feel it. Like, this seemed like damage that would just be a DNF for me. Lots of dead cars in pit. There's a lot of people that just didn't make it even this far. So silver lining here for me is that, and then I jump out of the car. But silver lining for me here is that actually, with so many cars out, I at least wouldn't be starting all the way back. So going back for my teammate. So Matt Johnston is kind of he's my new teammate, or newer teammate. Kind of carrying the flag for my team, and still more people having issues navigating this track. That is an Eclipse car with a completely collapsed left front suspension. Ooh, well, that's what happens when you push with a damaged car here. You can see a lot of skid marks on the ground, just people having trouble getting this car stopped because of all the bumps. So, I retire with 5 laps left in the race, and I think up front, Bonomi, Kyle Allen, Nate, my teammate Chris, who had a great start at the beginning, and then Titus, Zach, Cameron Dance, Jeff Groff. And yeah, my Dan unfortunately did have to eventually retire. But if I go back onto, I guess my highest running teammate would be Chris. Chris is just a really tidy driver. It's always great to kind of watch him race. You can see how close to the walls the cars kind of get with people driving it really well. Ooh, that was really close. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a 1X. But that's kind of how you have to lap here. You have to just be brave. Nate is actually kind of inching closer. I don't think Nate actually gets Chris, though, for the sprint. But he is definitely coming. 3 more laps to go. Oh, I think Chris is actually letting Nate go. Perhaps maybe Chris does get some damage from that contact. That's nice of Chris. Ooh. Okay. Jumping on Nate, who is now the highest TWR car. Yeah, I think Chris is just kind of limping it home. Probably a little bit of suspension damage from all those wall brushes. Nate is kind of just taking it really wide at the apexes. I think Nate's line is quite tidy through the first sector as well. You can see how much the car moves around from all the bumps. And even the bumps there kind of made Nate lock up. A car that's this stiff shouldn't be moving around this much. This is just a... And a white flag, final lap. This is just a product of this car on a track like this, which is probably like not really that suited to be running at a track this bumpy. This is definitely like a tin top track, a tin top street track. Although IndyCar has gone through some incredibly bumpy tracks before. Oh, that's Cameron dead. Yeah, so all of these big name retirements, if I had just not bended in the wall, man, it would have been, I would have actually gained a lot of positions for the invert. I noticed that watching my teammates kind of finish the race, and of course I am really down on myself at this point, but I'm just trying to like focus on the feature that's coming up. I've definitely warmed up enough for the feature. And just trying to not like let my mistakes in the sprint kind of get to me. Been kind of the name of the game this season, which is like a bad sprint and just trying to recover for the feature, which kind of ends up happening. So I'm hoping for something similar here. And then that's kind of the end of the sprint race.
Winner of the sprint can go to the waiting room for mid-race interview.
Yep, thank you, Zach. Okay, so moving on to the feature. I have some Eclipse cars around me. Cameron Dance in front of that Eclipse car. These are definitely fast guys that want to kind of move up the field through the feature. I have that in I'm cognizant of that at the start of the feature. But right now I'm just kind of hoping for the best starting this far back due to DNF. Fortunately, nobody in front of me. I do get my wheel spin again, but I am more aware of it this time, so I don't lose control as badly as I did. People taking 4 wide and causing issues. I just let Griffin go. Two super formulas without a rear wing. I am like terrified at this point. Joao does a really good job slowing it down without just looping it. I see smoke, which kind of means bad things. This is unbelievably scary for me right now because without a rear wing, it's just very easy to just loop it. And I'm actually surprised that Joao is able to... Oh, and there's the big wreck. Dan gets by me. I kind of thread Donito, and then a full course caution comes out. Some folks are in a hurry, even though the caution is out. I think because of I think I do pass
disaster,
him.
guys.
Get in front of Dan as well. Joao just immediately pits, I believe. Oh no, he waits. He kind of stays out, but he does need to pit for that rear wing repair.
Pace car, T2.
Can I bid for repairs?
Yes, you can, but it's not gonna take care of your mandatory pit because you're not in the window yet. But you can pit.
No, yeah, I know it's not mandatory, but I don't want to have the rear wing.
I almost just got like wiped out. I don't even remember who that was. That almost wiped me out. But just there's a big checkup, and then
I
folks
think I'm
behind
driving
me.
a Formula Ford.
Yes, he is. Yes, you
Yeah,
are.
you're
Joao.
missing both wings there, I think. You can pit for repair, for sure.
At this point, I did hear a crunch.
Question, because I'm not used to leading these things anymore. Do I have to stay pace car speed the entire way, or is there a point where I control the pace?
Hey, Christian, Zach, I'm going to let you guys pass on the restart.
I think Nate does get his answer, but it's maybe not in the public
Okay.
lobby. People
I
are
have
just
to
getting
pit for a rear wing, so I
People are
might
just-
be here, I might not. Who knows?
people are just getting a little impatient. It is unbelievably slow. The full course cautions on road and iRacing.
And then
It's just-
race control, I have an answer to my question.
I think it's funny that
Okay. I'll go from that.
Nate, you should definitely pit.
I bet Drows thinking his races might be done.
Nate, I would
but
probably just maintain the pace. I think that's the default.
so that's a position gained. Pretty happy about that, honestly. Just because I don't want to try to pass Joao without his rear wing. I don't want to pass anybody without a rear wing. But Joao especially, because he's actually really, really good and really fast. There's anybody that could probably keep pace with anybody without a rear wing, it's Joao. But it's just really hard to predict, and it's just something that could just make you easily loop, because this car needs all the downforce it can take, basically, just with so much like power, and with it being so fast, that it just kind of outruns the amount of downforce that it could get if it doesn't have any of the wings working.
Let's take care of each other, guys. The problem is just nobody drives like anybody cares about anybody. Like, we don't need to be crashing everybody.
Hey, Cameron, you're missing a front wing, just so you know.
Copy.
This is us coming to a restart. I'm actually feeling pretty good about my position right now. Even though there are kind of folks ahead of me that I feel like I could kind of maybe have a little bit of pace over. Due to all that wreck that we just went through and that's created this full course caution. Position actually is looking pretty good, and I'm thinking about trying to leapfrog the cars in front through pit stops. But this is definitely a survival race. So, doing my best to also not think too far ahead. Just kind of trying to think about getting a good restart. Folks ahead are weaving just to kind of keep temperatures in their tires. Sun's kind of going down, so this is an evening race. Just kind of enjoying the scenery for a little bit. It is funny that that thing right there is actually entrance to the subway. And then we're back to green. Tires are just ice cold right now. But still trying to kind of push with them because everybody up front they're pushing. You can hear it skip over the ground too. Hunter gets a really good run.
All right.
We both get past. I'm just trying to follow Hunter up through the field. At this point, I'm just kind of telling myself not to over push and then just make a dumb mistake like I did in the sprint. I burn a little push to pass just because I just want to get up a little bit closer to the front. Especially on colder tires when everybody else up front, I see like a pack in front of me. I want to get closer to them, even though at a track like this, it might actually be better just to have a little bit of distance just to avoid wrecks. Because, as you no doubt know from this point, you watched, oh, and there's a gigantic wreck. That is, unfortunately, my teammate Matt Johnston, who collects Chris Hill and Titus Sherlock.
Go ahead, Mitch. Give me the inside here.
Chris is now running without a front wing.
Appreciate it.
It's like a more extreme version of what he's dealing with in the sprint. Way more extreme though. Chris, for the most part, is kind of able to run competitively. Without a front wing here, you're just always a sitting duck. You just lose way too much performance. Oh, and Bonomi almost wrecks just kind of trying to check up for Chris being a lot slower, trying to take care of his car without a front wing. It's a really huge deal to just not have a front wing. In some ways, Chris is kind of lucky that we're at Chicago with this, because if there's any track that this car relies more on mechanical grip than aero, it's definitely this track. So whatever performance loss that Chris has, it's actually minimized by the track that we're racing at right now. You could see, you know, we've gone through so many corners and Chris is still holding up Bonomi. Although I think he finally like makes a pass here. But this is like we're in the second sector of the lap already. And that whole sector, even without a front wing, Chris can kind of like keep ahead. Chris is thinking about pitting now, but everybody in voice chat for Discord is just kind of convincing him to kind of stay out. Just to try to run without a front wing to lap 10, because that's when the pit window opens. End of lap 10. Hunter is pressuring Chris, just wants to get by. Chris just lets him go again. Lack of front wings, not a lot of good reason to kind of try to hold people up without a front wing. You're just trying to run as fast as you can while making it to the pit window and not lose too much time. Yeah, look at this mechanical grip that Chris has without a front wing. Like, I do close up, but even then, like in any other circumstance and any other track, really, it really just takes a one. It really just takes like one corner just for you to get past somebody without a front wing. You lose so much performance in these cars without the aero. But Chris does kind of let me by. If he really wanted to contest it, he probably could have stayed ahead throughout this whole section. But being a good teammate, he just kind of lets me by. And at this point, I'm not really thinking about Chris anymore. I'm just kind of like trying to keep up with Hunter and Kevin ahead of me. At this point, I'm telling myself that if I'm pushing and I could not let Hunter out of my sights too quickly, he is probably going to like pull away from me just because he's not one of the top drivers in these cars. But if I could just kind of keep him within eyesight for as much as I can, then I should be in pretty decent shape for like the amount of lap times that I'm making basically. Hunter's definitely more comfortable than me at the. I brushed her wall just briefly, but didn't even register as a 0x. So this is just kind of natural pushing for Chicago. You're just kind of throwing it around the walls and just hoping that the car will catch itself not to pancake into the walls. A little bit of a rear lock. It's all good. So yeah, at this point, it's pretty clear that Hunter just has legs on me. So I'm just running. At this point, I'm just running my race, just kind of running the laps, just trying to get more comfortable, trying to see which parts I could kind of push a little bit more on, which parts I still got to be careful on. You can see that Hunter is just kind of like just running away in the distance. Kevin's already just not within eyesight of me already, so. At this point, we're kind of talking strategy. Obviously, Chris is pitting exactly as soon as the pit window opens. He's still trying to circulate, still trying to not lose too much time to the front. I get a little bit more comfortable in the final sector to get closer into the walls, and I start kind of doing that. This is a follow-up to what I said in qualifying, where I get more comfortable. Well, because of how closely I brushed the wall going into the penultimate corner. I kind of know how to judge that now because I found a limit in qualifying.
Not fighting you. Not fighting you. Oh, you just knocked my front wing off.
Still see Hunter. Hunter is not completely out of eyesight yet. Kevin's just completely gone.
Pits are open at the end of this lap.
And at this point, Chris is just kind of thanking his stars right now. He's still circulating without a front wing. I kind of put quite a bit of distance to him. I kind of feel like he was probably a little like out of contention at this point. I'm just focusing on my race with where I'm at. A little bit in no man's land. I don't have the pace to close up to Hunter. And neither Hunter or I have pace for Kevin right now. My teammate Nate is still going well up front. Nate's kind of backing up to us. The car you see is Nate. Oh, Oh. I actually do kind of brush the wall on the left side. So Hunter's gone.
Oh my god. Are you joking?
That is Mitch.
You're
Mitch,
kidding me.
Mitch and Hunter kind of came together. Well, Mitch kind of comes out of the access road.
Me as well.
Wow.
Pitting in, pitting in, pitting in, pitting in, pitting in, pitting in.
I guess that's what I get for avoiding a wreck.
So, yeah. All of a sudden,
Awesome.
things are looking really good for me right now. I remind myself at this point to just kind of be careful not to bin it. You can see I'm still pushing, actually. Ooh, and Kevin in front backs up and slams into the wall. I kind of wait for Kevin. I didn't think it was probably worth it to try to dive there and maybe get caught up in his wreck and then have to retire myself. And yeah, that just puts me into the lead. So the first time I'm leading, like, I'm the actual leader in an FSS race. Mitch kind of comes out in front of me. He is like missing his left side pod. His car has been through the wars, but everything's kind of pointing straight, so his pit crew just sends him out. I'm not too concerned with whether Mitch lets me by or not at this point, but Mitch does the polite thing and just kind of takes the access road just to kind of let me by. Mitch is like a multiple, like he's multiple laps down at this point. So at this point, I'm not too sure who can catch me. Christian Jasper behind me is actually still kind of keeping decent pace, but he has quite the margin behind me. So I'm not necessarily relaxing, but I am just kind of taking care of my car right now. Feeling good about the car as the temperatures kind of come down on this track. You can see it's getting quite late in the evening. Sun's going down. Track is beautiful in the evening, honestly. I'm still pushing, and I almost binned it just then, actually. I'm like on a knife's edge. I start trying to pick up the pace a little bit at this point, just because I'm starting to kind of realize that I have such a big lead right now, but this is not like an Ayrton Senna, Alan Prost situation at Monaco. I still need to make a pit stop. This is our compulsory pit for Formula Super Series. In the future, you need to make one pit stop and change tires. You don't have to, the car cannot refuel. Like, it's just the real life rule set that they just can't refuel. It's like a sealed tank, basically, as weird as that seems. And the tires can last throughout the entire race. So in some of my other races, I've kind of gone through to the end with only a handful of laps to go, and I've actually overcut people. That's actually how I've been getting really good positions, really good results, even though I've starting on the back foot, starting down the grid in the feature. But obviously I haven't pitted yet, so Chris has. And Chris is just trying to close a gap to me for when I come out. The delta is kind of closing. My teammate Matt Johnston is in my radio currently and just kind of updating me on my pace with Christian. I kind of think that maybe Christian can hold up Chris. But right now I'm just trying to go as long as possible without needing to pit. I think in retrospect, a strategy that could work at this point would be if I pit now and just have track position in front of Chris. But I didn't think it was worth it at this point to pit early and worry about running up to Zach and Christian and Joao. Because fighting them, I think, or running behind them might make me lose time and would actually hurt my race. So I'm kind of, at this point, I'm committing to my typical strategy of trying to just go long on one set of tires.
Thank you.
Everybody right now is just kind of struggling just to kind of circulate the track. This is definitely really a really difficult track, and honestly, the setup that the engineering team did for this round is a lot better than you can even reasonably expect. It about takes the bumps as well as you can really reasonably expect for a super formula. I think maybe if there's more time, we could have probably maybe even found like some points that are better, because tire does kind of skip a lot over some of the bumps and it makes kind of braking a little bit difficult. But then again, a lot of this is just physics, you know? Like this car isn't really meant to be driving on this track. It is only in the sim racing environment could we put on like wacky stuff like this. At this point, I'm just trying to be mindful of every bump. What's helped me a lot this race is definitely being comfortable on the warm tires, just kind of knowing what the warm tires can take. It can take a lot more than you expect, actually, because on cold tires, man, the car just almost throws a tantrum going through these bumps. And at every corner, I'm just constantly mindful of what bumps to kind of worry about, and that's actually helped me quite a bit. Just kind of like lap cleanly and safely while still not necessarily, running around like a grandma. I'm still racing. Getting close to the walls. The lap cars are really good to me this round, which I appreciate, honestly. There is no blue flag rules in the league.
Pitting out.
There's no blue flag rules in this league. It is advised, but not mandatory. So a lot of the people here that are lapped and moving out of the way don't actually need to do that. But it is kind of the right thing to do, especially if they're not necessarily fighting for anything or they're necessarily on a strategy. A lot of these cars are just they're trying to make it home and they're newer to this car, or they've been caught up in wrecks and they're just trying to finish, basically, and collect as many positions as they can from people later on in the race retiring. At this point, I am just trying to push a little bit more. I am very aware of Chris bearing down on me. He's kind of closing the gap. Matt Johnson has told me a pit delta that I actually forgot what he said, but it was going to be very, very close to Chris. At this point, I still feel that I'm faster on worn tires than I am on new tires. So I figured with how difficult it is to pass here, it's better for me that I kind of maintain this pace on older tires. Have a big lead, but it's not safe because I'm still thinking about that pit stop that I need to make. It can all go wrong just from that pit stop. This is probably the most difficult part of any race, any kind of Grand Prix length race, where there's pit stop involved. There's long stretches where you just have to push and try to make sure that the pit cycle is kind of to your favor. Chris is turning up the heat on me more and more as each lap goes by. I am hoping at this point that there's just too much for him to kind of overcome, and then if I could just come out in front of him, I'll probably have to race one. Back is getting colder. That's actually giving me more grip and more confidence. I'm still just reminding myself not to bin it. Because even if I lose it to Chris, a P2 is still really good. I think I have Jasper covered really well at this point. And nobody else besides Chris has a threat on me. 2 lap cars in front of me. They're fighting for position. Nick Goyette ahead of me. It's Zach Flaum's teammate. I see Nick is on push to pass. At this point, I could tell because of him being on push to pass, he doesn't want to let me by. He almost wrecks there, actually. And I'm a little bit worried about him holding me up. And this has to be the lap that I need to pit in, basically. Nick still does pretty decent speeds at in the final sector. But you can see there's definitely spots where I'm just a little bit braver and I just close up, but the dirty air makes me kind of understeer on exit. So I definitely need to pit at this point. So brake hard into the final corner, and here we go. I do kind of overslow slightly, but I'm just worried about not speeding. There's my pit stall, which annoyingly you actually cannot see on the replay. You cannot see my cannot see my boards. Just trying to, and I almost completely lose it there on new tires. Chris is like right behind me. He is like exactly right behind me. It's a shame I don't have my virtual mirrors up, because you'd be able to see him kind of hound me with my mirrors if I had that up. But in my replay, it's just not up, unfortunately. Chris kind of takes a peek on me. I brake late. Stay in front. I'm desperately trying to get my tires up to temp and pushing on them without being too silly and just binning the car. I think I'm hitting all my marks, but Chris is just on really well treated tires at this point, even though they're much older than mine. I lose rear traction there, and I push wide, and unfortunately I have to lift off the throttle there, and Chris is on push to pass. He's on my inside. At this point, he kind of just has the position. I didn't want to contest into this side by side. It was always going to just feed me into the wall. So I can feel grip kind of coming into my tires. About the end of this lap is when it kind of gets appropriately warm. Yeah, I'm still pushing. Still a little bit traction limited, actually, in the rear. This seems to kind of just be the general issue I've had with the fixed set at this track. Is just in my hands, I just feel like the rear is just a little bit traction limited. It's not too bad though. I've been enjoying this set. Like, priority for this set is always just to be make the car compliant and predictable over the bumps. This is like inching away from me ahead. I'm pushing as hard as I can because I want to just kind of make sure that Chris doesn't run away too far ahead, but at this point I'm kind of thinking that, yeah, this is obviously going to be, you know, Chris's race to win. He did a really good job being on push to pass, kind of pressuring me into overslipping my rear tires, and then that slip exiting turns too was the killer right there. Like if I had had this kind of exit when Chris was behind me and I was maybe defended a little bit, I don't think he would have gotten by me, and then it probably would have been more difficult when I kind of get tires more warmed up. I kind of steer into the wall just because I'm just pushing just to keep up with Chris. Even though I've told myself that, hey, this is probably, you know, this is very likely his race now. You know, you never know if Chris might like hit something, understeer a bit, you know, have to like limp his car home. I don't want to have too much time to need to make up to him if that happens. And it's always good to just kind of put as much pressure as you can, you know? I do see that there's like a lap car in front of Chris. I have a lot of push to pass. So, just using them all here in the final runs. I think that's Mitch again. Just kind of limping with without a side pod to his left. Mitch is just trying to make it home. Good for his points. He's fighting for the championship right now. Yeah, what a drive from Chris, honestly. He wrecked with my teammate Matt Johnston early in the feature, and even though his car was actually literally airborne, slamming into the back of him inside that short chute between turns 4 and 5. And despite that, he basically just didn't have that much damage from it. All he needed was just a front wing change and his car is totally fine. And he just pushed all the way to the end. He ran 6 to 7 laps without a front wing. It's just nice. He just lets the both of us go. Chris kind of backs up to me just slightly just because of Mitch holding him up. Really, Chris has extra pace to spare, so there's not really anything I could do to kind of close up and contest the win. Still driving as hard as I can, though, as you can see from me, still kind of going out into the inside wall. Sorry, the outside wall in that corner. So this is the final lap, and yeah, it's a good win for Chris. There's one more corner to go. Not even really pushing it that hard. That's my teammate Dan, who actually had a meatball and purposely let Chris by so he could complete 3 laps without needing to serve it and getting disqualified. It's actually very, very smart of Dan. It counts as a finish, honestly. I am just absolutely pooped by the end of this race.
JJ on the podium, admin collusion.
Thanks, man. Good race, Christopher. Good race, man.
Good race, guys.
Zhao, that was a great fight. That was a great fight. Immense pressure. That was a lot of fun.
Top 3 to the interview booth. Top 3 to the interview booth. Good job, guys.
Giles to my left, just kind of revving his engines, congratulating me. You can tell that.
Also,
Uh,
we'll do an internal investigation onto the admin collusion.
Oh, thank you, Zach. Okay, I got a little gift for you. Check your PayPal after this.
Just jokes.
Nice recovery, dude.
Just
Yeah.
jokes.
I'm annoyed you got so many points on me now, but that was good to recover from the broken car.
Yeah, Zral also drove a mega race. Just, you know, if you folks remember from earlier in this video, he was literally without a rear wing. He had to take all that repairs, and thankfully for that full course caution, he was able to stay on the lead lap. But he restarted like literally the end of the pack and had to just drive through everybody. So yeah, that was my race at Chicago. You could probably tell that why this is something that I didn't just want to let go. Just kind of let into the disappear into sands of time. This is my first and only podium for FSS. Probably gonna be that way.
JJ, please remember to save the replay.
And
I'm
of
assuming
course,
you will because it's probably your greatest accomplishment.
sure was. Well, if you stuck around through this whole thing, appreciate it. Again, it's a little bit different. I wish I had the Discord radio. That's of my typical. I wish this was live, but this is kind of the best I could do. With the VOD kind of being eaten. So yeah, you know, on for more races. Looking forward to kind of the end of the season.